Welcome back. This is knitting lesson number 2. So if you're just joining us, we just finished knitting lesson number 1 where we learned how to do the long tail cast on. So we have 10 stitches here and we left this long tail right there. And then in the back here we have our working yarn, which is attached to our ball of yarn, which is off over there off camera right there. So we have these 10 stitches. So the first thing we want to do is learn how to do a basic knit on these. Step 1 is to turn your needle around. And the reason for that is because the stitches that you're going to work are always going to come off of your left needle, always. You're not going to be really working anything off of your right needle. So stitches that need to be worked need to be in your left needle. Then you're going to pick up your right needle in your right hand. Okay, so there's nothing on your right needle and you've got your 10 stitches on your left. This is where we want to start. Now I'm going to preface this with I don't knit normally. I think if you're looking at books and trying to find instructions online, most people knit with the yarn in their left hand like this with some sort of tension, and they use the right needle to pull that yarn to the right. I don't do that. There is no wrong way really to knit. You just have to do what's most comfortable for you. This is kind of sort of a left-handed method of knitting, but give it a try. I will cover some alternate methods that you might prefer in a future tutorial. So for right now, just for the purposes of this, we're just going to show you a basic knit stitch. And we're going to work in this tail a little bit so it's nice and secure just for the first 3 stitches. So while you're not supposed to knit with this tail, I'm going to knit with both strands, the working yarn and the tail, for the first 3 stitches. So to begin, you're going to take your right needle and you're going to slip it under that very first loop from the bottom. Okay? And you're basically making a crisscross with your needle. So you have your right needle at the bottom and your left needle at the top. Now I'm going to take both strands of yarn and I'm going to yarn over just the right needle, so just the one at the bottom. I'm going to push it down, point it downward, back through the same loop, and then slide it off the left needle so it's on your right needle. Now you have a knit stitch on your right, and you have 9 of these stitches you still need to work on your left. So let's do it again. Take the tip of the needle, push it through, yarn over, push it down through the same loop, come up off the tip of the needle. There's your 2 stitches. Tip through the bottom, yarn over, push it down through the same loop, slide it off the needle. So now you have 3 stitches here. At this point, I'm going to abandon this tail. I'm just going to let it hang there, and I'm only going to continue working with the working yarn. Okay, let's see. Sorry, it's a little awkward to try to knit with a camera in your face. Okay, so let's do this again. We're going to take the tip of the needle. We're doing exactly the same thing, just with 1 strand. Now we're taking this strand and we're yarning over. Be careful when you're yarning over. You're not just yarning over right here at the tip of the needle, because it's very skinny up there and your stitches will not be all the same size. You want to use the thickest part of the needle. Okay, again, in through the bottom, yarn over, push it down through the same loop, slide it off. Again, in through the bottom, so the 2 needles are sharing a loop. Yarn over only the bottom needle, push it down through the same loop, slide it off. And again, come in from the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. In through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. In through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. In through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. Now this last stitch here is always going to be a little bit loose. That'll tighten as you work through your piece. That's okay. Now what I hope you can see here, it's a little tough to see on camera, but your stitches right here, under every little loop you have, there's a little V. Kind of looks like that. You got V's right there. That's your knit stitch. Just make sure your little stitch there doesn't fall off the needle. Okay, and then the other side of a knit, if you turn this around, do you see how right up here under every loop it looks like there's a little purl at the bottom? That's because the wrong side of a knit is a purl. A purl is basically a backwards knit. So for this project, because you're just learning the knit stitch, we don't know how to purl yet, we're going to purl every row. So when you get to the end of your row here, you have to flip your needle, because remember, you're working stitches off of your left needle and the finished stitches go on your right needle. So now that I've turned this around, I'm looking at all these purl-like stitches even though I knitted them, because it's the back of the knits that I did on the other side. So let's go in and do another row of knit. So we're going to come in through the bottom here. Now this first stitch is always a little loose, so you want to pull that tight before you yarn over. That'll help you with your tension. Through the bottom, slip it off. Okay, and again. In through the bottom of the loop, sharing the same loop, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. Again, through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. In through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. In through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. And again. In through the bottom, yarn over, push it down, slide it off. Okay, now I'm at my, oh, one more. Yarn over, push it down, slide it off. Now I'm at my last 3 stitches. These are the ones that I worked in the tail for. So there's 2 strands per stitch. Be careful, because you want to make sure that you're going through both loops. Otherwise you're going to increase and you're going to have a crooked piece. Okay, so you're working these as though they're one. Yarn over, push it down, slide it off. In through both loops. Make sure you're through both of them. Yarn over, push it down, slide it off. Into both loops. This is your last stitch. Yarn over, push it down. Okay, that's the only row that is really going to happen for, because that's where you worked in your tail. Otherwise, now you're going to start seeing your garter stitch take place. This is when you knit all the way across and you get 1 row of knit, 1 row of purl. So keep doing that all the way up and see how your garter stitch turns out. We'll see you at the next lesson. Happy knitting!